A very good morning, afternoon, or evening to you. This is the second video of this Mythic Plus run-through analyzation. Again, it's been filmed from a Death Knight perspective. The group setup this time is slightly different, but you will recognize some names. The run I actually forgot to start recording, so I only started recording about 30 seconds into the run, so you do miss the initial pull. But I don't think that's going to be too big of a problem. I'll try to go over how to deal with Skittish and bursting. But other than that, I'll just go through the entire run. We start off, this is the start of the run. This is the first two trash packs put together. This is back when I didn't have my Mooncliffs yet, so I was using a 935 Tony's Promise. What we did is I pulled the first two packs together, put a Death and Decay right under them, propped my Dancing Rune Weapon and my Tony's Promise. We just AoE'd everything down. This week is Skittish as well, but the group setup that we have is a Warlock which has a slow ramp up time. He is a Destruction Warlock. Fola, which is our lovely Gnome Beast Mastery Hunter, and Elliston actually, which is one of my better Shadow Priest friends, I would say. If you guys have any more questions, by the way, in the Twitch chat here, feel free to just pop them out and I'll try to look over every now and then. Right here, we are trying to get Glaviana down. Glaviana is pretty lethal for tanks because she does do that random jump back ability. If this would be a teaming week, that would have procced my Purgatory there. One of the lovely things about Skittish weeks and hunters is that misdirection is a wonderful, wonderful tool. Something else that you can see in this run is the way that we deal with bursting. Now, bursting is the affix where if you kill something, it will put a dot on you that will deal half of the dot's damage per 2 seconds over 4 seconds. So one stack will deal 5% of your damage every 2 seconds. 4 stacks will deal 20% of your damage every 2 seconds for 4 seconds. So it's basically just 2 ticks. 10 stacks will deal 100% of will deal 50% of your health in damage every 2 seconds. So if you do get 10 stacks and you have no healer, you are going to die. The way that we deal with it is that we try to kill everything as close together as possible, but that doesn't always work out, unfortunately. However, anything under, anything 5 stacks and under should be easily dealt with by your healer. But what is very lethal is that if you first have 6 stacks and then get 1 tick of the damage from 6 stacks, and then go into a 7th stack after that 6th stack has already happened, and then go into an 8th stack after that 7th stack has hit once. If you keep staggering the cooldowns and refreshing it, that's when bursting becomes a real problem. But bursting is, other than that, bursting is not really a problem. It's just the healer can usually out-heal it. And if the healer cannot out-heal it, then that might be because they are using the wrong spells at the wrong time, or because they are out of mana, and as a tank you've not paid attention to their mana, or those kinds of things. Or maybe they're bad. You don't know. If you're pugging, sometimes you just get pugged up with people who are not of a caliber player as you might be. One of the things for bursting specifically, and this counts for any DPS with an invulnerability, which is an awful word, or DKs, because DKs are the best class, obviously, is that if you use AMS for DKs, you don't actually get the bursting effect put on you. As bursting is a negative magical effect, and the way that AMS is worded is that it makes it so that you don't get negative or harmful. I would say you don't get harmful magical attacks, magical effects applied to you. So if you pull a pack of 10 guys and you try to AoE them down as close together as possible, then right before the first one dies, you activate your AMS and you get absolutely 0 stacks, which for your healer means that instead of having to heal up 5 people that are losing 50% of their health every 2 seconds, your healer only has to heal up 4 people that do that. So usually if you have those cooldowns available for you, you'll want to pull bigger packs, because for a healer it's not that hard to keep 3 people up if they have 7 or 8 stacks, but it's almost impossible to keep 5 people up. One of the hardest things for tanks is like for your 10 affix, it's definitely Tyrannical, because some bosses in the game just hit like absolute trucks, and it can, like when you go up to 19s and 20s, it can be really, really awful to keep up your health, especially as a DK tank. As a DK tank in any high Tyrannical key, you would always want to out heal your healer, basically. Like you can see right now, we're doing a Tyrannical key. I'm at like 700k HPS and our healer is at 550k. I'm only that high on the HMS list, on the HPS list, because I take a metric ton of damage, and the more damage I take, the more healing I do. Whereas with Fortified Weeks, if you see that a pack is going to be really, really challenging, then you can just take it slow, you know? You can just take 1 pack at a time, or you can cut a pack in half, so you only take half of the pack first, and then the second half of a pack. Then for the level 7 affix, I would say that Necrotic is probably the hardest, quote unquote, to do with, even though Necrotic is not always a problem. Some people really, really hate Skittish. I don't mind Skittish that much, because I am very focused on doing as much damage as possible as well, next to tanking. Like if you end up the fight with 1 health, but you've done the maximum amount of damage that you possibly could have done, then you've done a good job. If you end the fight at 100% health, but you've only done, let's say, 50% of the damage that you could have done, then yeah, I mean, you've kind of done a good job, but you've also hindered the progress of your team, because like maybe you could have done it like almost a minute or 2 minutes faster if you could have just pulled out that damage. What you saw here, by the way, is that I stood in the beam and I immediately procced my purgatory there. Yeah, so I mean for tanks those two are kind of the worst. If you do have fortified, then there's some trash packs that are really really awful. Um, but it's generally not that big of a deal. Um, if you just kind of take it like slow and steady. On fortified weeks, instead of pulling 5 packs at a time, you can pull 3 packs at a time and be better. Or instead of pulling 2 packs at a time, you just go and take uh, one each. And then for level 4 affix, I would say that raging is probably the worst, especially if you have a raging fortified week. I don't think raging fortified weeks might not exist, um, but even on a plus 20 or a plus 19 tyrannical, when you have a fortified week, the when you have a tyrannical week, the ads still really really hurt, um, just because it's such a high key. And if then at 30% they also start doing 100% extra damage, then you still might get absolutely destroyed as a tank. One of the other things that you have to kind of pay attention to um, for the affixes is when it's a teaming week. Teaming weeks are really awful for me specifically because I kind of like I semi know the dungeons by heart, but whenever you have a teaming week, you need to use a different pathing than you need in other weeks because some of the trash gives less percent. For this boss, I didn't go over the bosses. For the first boss, it's really important that you kind of always proactively um, move around the circle, like the little fountain, so that you never get caught off guard with uh, with the chains. And then in phase 2, he actually buffs himself, or he buffs his weapons, and then every single time he hits you, you need to have active mitigation up. Um, because every time that you get hit without having active mitigation up, so in a DK's case that would be blood or death strike. Every time you death strike, you um, give yourself a 3-second buff that you have used active mitigation. Um, so if you don't have that up, then he will gain a shield that you just have to DPS through for every time that you got hit. So if you never use active mitigation on that boss, then you just prolong the boss fight by so much. And then on this fight, we usually just tank him up here, um, because it is the easy thing to do. It's not actually this boss is not actually very challenging if you just tank him up here because there's not that much damage going on. Um, there's 4 different doors with ads that he can spawn. He will only ever spawn 2 of them per run, and it's always going to be the same 2 as well. I think so. If you are in the dungeon and he's done the front right and the back right one, then if you wipe and you have to go again, then you have to do the front right and back right again. The front right mobs spawn a warlock caster. That warlock caster is very lethal because it does a Seed of Corruption cast, and if you do not interrupt it, and I think if you do dispel it, you might one shot half your party because it does a very big AOE burst of damage. So as a DK, what you always want to do is right here at the front right one. If he does teleport there, you'll want to kind of move here to the side of the platform. Then you can death grip over the warlock. Then your DPS can destroy the warlock, and the other 2 mobs don't matter that much. They do also have to die, but they don't matter that much. Then at the back right one, you could see these living corruptions. They are the best the easiest to deal with because they don't really do much. Although Druid for Life might disagree because they do put a dot on people that does a short, like a small burst of damage, but like you could see, 3 of those dots went off and people only went to 50% health, so that's not too big of a deal. Then the back left actually doesn't matter at all. None of those mobs are particularly harmful, so what you do is you just hide behind one of these pillars here and they will come walking to you. And then for the front left specifically, what I like to do is I like to move with the boss, then use my Gorfine's Grasp and mass grip everything onto the boss, so your DPS can cleave him down, and then as soon as the ads are dead, you can move back up to this platform and then retake your position right here. What I did right there is I started walking towards the next boss, which is going to be after this little mini boss here, because the boss was at like 2 or 3% health, and what you want to do when the boss is at 2 or 3% health is you want to start thinking about, okay, where am I going to walk next? Especially if you're doing keys that are high enough that you are going to struggle. Those keys for me and Druid for Life are definitely the 18 and 19s, and recently even the 20s, where we would start to really struggle depending on the affix combination as well. So in those situations, every single second matters. But if you're in a, let's say in a slightly lower tier with your gear, for example, let's say you have a very clean run, but everybody is slightly lower geared than what we are, you will start struggling with 16s and 70s. If you are at a gear level of slightly below that, you'll start to struggle with 15s and 16s, etc. So when you do reach your max that you can reach, what you will want to do is you will want to try to min-max positioning and try to pre-walk places when bosses are about to die. Because if you are at 100% health as a tank, and the boss has 2% health left, and your entire party is alive, there's no way that you're going to die in those final 2%. Right here we pull Glazer. Glazer is very easy to do with as a tank. As you can see in his hitbox right here, you can see myself positioning myself right in the middle of it, because the way that the balls move is that he shoots them out, and then as soon as they bounce somewhere, they will bounce towards the closest character, towards the closest player. So if you have, let's say, two AoE, two melee DPS, you can just all huddle inside of his health bar, like inside of his hitbox, and then you will bounce all the balls back towards him. If you're stood in his health box, you don't actually take any damage at all from the balls, but the balls will do damage on you. This is sometimes slightly unfortunate because that lingering gaze that you can see right there, that was put underneath his, like right in the middle of his hitbox basically, that is an ability that gets cast on a random member. Right here, he just went to our warlock that was standing right there. So if you have 2 melee, then it is a good idea to think about pre-moving places as soon as he puts that cast out. But other than that, staying in his hitbox is usually the right thing to do, because you remove all possibilities of getting hit. And I am going to go slightly back in the video. We are at 1839 right now, 1840. Right here, okay, he's about to go into his first mirror phase. Then what you have to do is a couple of mirrors spawn, one of them which will be overloaded. What you need to do is you need to place the mirrors in such a way that they will bounce his light back to him. And what you see me do is you see me changing this mirror into the wrong position. I do that on purpose, because if this beam hits the overloaded mirror, it will actually basically just wipe your group, because it bursts out incredible amounts of damage, which ends up, let's say it bursts out, this is a made up number, I don't know what the exact number is, but it bursts out at like about 2 million damage. And because the mirror was so close to not getting killed, I thought it would be safer to quickly move it once so that it doesn't, so that like we're guaranteed to not hit the overloaded mirror. And then as soon as the overloaded mirror was dead, I moved around the mirror yet again. Right here we go into another Lingering Gaze. We have another overloaded mirror. I think at this point I did tell the group that we had to be slightly more focused on the mirrors, or on the lenses. Here we killed the lens, then we put the other mirrors back into the correct position. And we ended up killing the boss here. A Lingering Gaze, you can see that it was put down there now, so I don't actually have to move as a tank. And I could just stay right in the middle of his hitbox in my little bubble. Right. One of the things I should have done here was, when the boss was at like 2%, I should have started moving over to the platform here, because I wasted about, let's say 3 or 4 seconds. One of the other things I also noticed is that in this entire run, I've not had any consumables active. So this entire run, I have wasted a full food buff, and I might actually be yeah, I'm going for a food buff now. I wasted a full food buff. I had no rune on, and I had no flask on. And we are currently like almost 20 minutes into the run. That is a load of damage that I have missed just by having, like, even if I would just use the Fell Focuser, that's another 500 strength that I could have had to do more damage. The haste food buff, that's another 300 haste that I could have had to do more damage. And this run is, I think we ended up being about 3 minutes over time. If I would have used those consumables, it would have been maybe only 2 and a bit minutes over time. Even now, I am using a potion, but I still haven't got a flask on. Right here, you can see me pop anti-magic shell and then soak as many of these fire patches as I can. As soon as anti-magic shell fades, I still am able to grab a couple of the patches, just because I can easily out heal them. As soon as the debuff is gone, you can see me take another 2 patches, because I can easily out heal them. Right here, I think I move too slowly and I grab a 3rd patch. No, I don't. Because when these patches do hit one of the ads, then the ads start to detonate and get super huge, and as soon as they explode, they will do about 30 to 40% damage to the entire group. right here you can see that I just take 2 of the patches. Then here I think I'm trying to AMS and soak more, but my AMS actually lasted because the damage from the current debuff that I have on me will burn through the AMS absorb. Here I'm taking a lot of damage, so I do actively try to use my rune tap as well. But other than that, this fight for a tank is not very interesting. Just make sure to pump out the max amount of damage you can. Right here, I actually lose bone shield charges for about four or so seconds. One of the things that you want to focus the most on while you're tanking, like your step 1, like step 1 of DK tank, is never lose bone shield charges, because if you have bone shield charges active, you will gain 10% haste, and 10% haste is a lot of haste. It might also only be 7 or 8% haste, I'm not entirely sure. But you lose a lot of haste if you have 0 bone shield charges active. Right here you can see me walking. You can see that I'm walking at 140% speed, 210 if I'm using my my Wraith Walk, but 140% regularly. That is because I have a specific set that I made. It is a gear set that has got the Agrimar Stride boots and Cephas's Secret for full health gain. Sorry, for full speed gain. The way that Agrimar's Stride works is that you just run faster depending on how much of a certain stat you have, and it will always take your highest stat. So for a Blood DK, it will generally be haste. So the more haste you have, the quicker you run. What you can see here, by the way, is actually that we used a battle res on someone about, like 10 meters away from the spawn. That was a fully wasted battle res. Because you spawn right there next to the lift. Yeah, so the way that Agrimar Strike works is like that, and Cephas gives a permanent 10% speed increase, I believe. So pooling those two together means that if you are not in combat, you can just swap from one set to the other, which means that you just walk much quicker. One of the biggest problems that Blood DKs have is just their movement speed. Right here I do it again. I swap into my movement speed set, then I walk a little bit back and forth, and then right here I actually don't swap out of it because it's only 4 mobs, so it's not really that needed. These 4 mobs are not very dangerous. And then we do start this trash with only the 3 of us because our priest and our warlock were not able to get on the lift. But it's better to just start them, and then the rest of the DPS can join in as soon as they're downstairs, rather than waiting upstairs, like waiting right here for them to come. As long as you have a healer and a tank, you should always try to start this. Then right here you can see me jump down. I'm still on my speed set, and at this point it is a problem because this trash hurts a lot more than the other trash. It is still bursting, even though you've not really noticed much from it this entire run. It is still bursting. So we want to be careful here with how many of these adds we kill at the same time. A good rule basically for bursting is either you want to kill everything at once, or you want to split it in 2 and then kill 50% at once, and then as soon as the 4-second debuff is gone, kill the other 50%. Right now you could see that we had 2 stacks, and it was almost over, and then we got 3 stacks, and that one was almost over, then we got 4 stacks. And then that one was almost over. We got 5 stacks, so we really botched that entire pull. Now right here is just me and the Warlock alive. So we're trying not to take a 6th stack of bursting, and we actually succeed. So it's just the two of us here. The Warlock and the DK, best friends forever. Now right here, I actually probably will die. Not entirely sure. I do have an asphyxiate ready, so why I'm not why I'm not stunning this mob, I have absolutely no clue. I should be stunning the mob. The way that these Spirits of Vengeance work is that as soon as you go out of range of them, they will teleport to right next to you. So they had aggro on, I believe it was our healer. So the Spirit of Vengeance that me and the Warlock were fighting completely disappeared and jumped to them. And then right here you could see that it had jumped back as well. So I'm walking back so we can kill it first. And then we can kill the other Spirit of Vengeance that we were fighting previously. We can kill that later. This way we just keep the maximum amount of dots on the previous spirit, and then we start fighting the new spirit. Alright, we've got 2 minutes left here, and we are at 99% trash. Killing this spirit will give us that 100% trash, so we don't actually have to move back. The route in Vault of the Wardens is always fairly the same. Again, you could see that I'm still in my speed set here. This was a run of like 2 weeks ago, so I might have not remembered that I was in my speed set. I also might have just thought that I preferred being in my speed set for that bit of the dungeon, because there is a lot of running and the mobs are not very dangerous. As you could see, because I was absolutely fine. And then here we have this boss, Cordana. The most difficult thing in this boss is probably the walls. That's what everybody always struggles with. Something that is low-key very difficult to this boss is that the boomerang that she pumps out, which you can see right here, she throws it out and then it comes back. If anyone gets hit by it, they will splash a load of damage around them. Then when she gets to what I think it's like 80% health or 75, she'll throw out the avatar. Avatar will steal your light, and she will teleport to a random bit of the dungeon or a random bit of the platform. If you have a hunter with you, the hunter can actually flare your ad, flare the boss, and that will bring her out of her shadow phase, so you don't have to worry about grabbing the light and then going to walk towards her and all that good stuff. Again here, Boomerang comes out, Boomerang comes back in. I think at the end of this run, when Cordana's at like 5% health, I think we might almost have a wipe because someone got hit by the glaive that goes back and forth. As a tank, what you really have to take care of here is that you don't get punted off the platform. Oh right, the walls. Yeah, what you can see is that I have some of the world markers. I have them linked to. I have them keybound to my keyboard. So what I can do is as soon as you see the wall spawn, you can see right there, where the reflections won't be, and then you put a marker right in the middle of that, which makes it much easier for you to find the gap in the wall every single time. Then you'll see that I'll wait right here until I get punted back. The first Spirit of Vengeance always spawns where I just put purple, which is after you enter. It is the back left bit of the room. And when the Spirit of Vengeance spawns, you need to have a light on her, because otherwise you can't see her. And the Spirit of Vengeance will do a cast on Cordana, which will make her invulnerable to all damage. However, you can stun that cast. So you can just put the light there preemptively. Is in the back left corner right there behind us. And you have your asphyxiate ready. You stand right there. As soon as it spawns, you asphyxiate. Then the ad doesn't matter anymore. Your DPS can just kill it. And you can still keep cleaving the boss. It's another minor DPS gain, but it is still a DPS gain. That was the run. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that you learned a little bit. What I'll ask of you is that you are nice to one another. When you find pugs, please don't be mean. If they make mistakes, try to educate them instead of calling them names or leaving the group. This was actually, I think, the first run I ever did with Faula. So this run is way older than 2 weeks. What I do is if I pug a run, I will add them as my friend, and then I'll put a tag under them, so you can remember in the future who you have played with. Yep, so yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a very good day.